All right, hi VC. I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We're back with another video, and hopefully everybody's doing well out there, doing okay. I thought I'd be back with a vinyl video this time. I know I've done some CD unboxing of box sets, and they've been predominantly CDs. So I thought, well, this is the vinyl community, the VC after all. Let's get back to some vinyl. So I do have some albums to show you. These are albums that I've picked up, well, fairly recently, and a few albums that I haven't had a chance to show you as of yet. So let's get to it. I've been mentioning I've been enjoying Roger Daltrey's solo albums. I've been able to find them fairly inexpensively, and came across Roger Daltrey's Ride a Rock Horse. Quite the cover on this one. This one features a cover of Walking the Dog, the Rufus Thomas classic. Not necessarily my favorite cover, but overall this is a pretty solid Roger Daltrey album. Now this is a later MCA pressing, so this includes the MCA sleeve, but it doesn't have any of the credits because they're not found on the jacket, which I think were included on the original sleeve. But online I did find the credits, so I just printed them up. It's kind of a nerdy thing to do, but at least I've got this included with the album. From 1975, produced by Russ Ballard. And a little fun fact about this album, if you check out the song Hearts Right, which is the second song on here, it was released as a single, and you can find the video that they made for it on YouTube, and the video includes the animation of Gerald Scarfe. Of course, Gerald Scarfe worked with Pink Floyd predominantly on the Wall album, and then the subsequent tour animation, and then the movie as well. But I didn't know that until taking a look at this album, doing maybe just a little bit of research, and it's quite easily found on YouTube. The song is called Hearts Right by Roger Daltrey, and it features the animation from Gerald Scarfe from 1975. So again, look for the song Hearts Right as opposed to Hearts of Fire, which is another Roger Daltrey song that is found on this 1987 album called Can't Wait to See the Movie. But I certainly could wait for this album. I was disappointed by this one. As I mentioned, I've been enjoying the Roger Daltrey solo albums more than I thought I would, but this one really suffers from 80s production, 80s style, and Roger Daltrey's vocals are kind of buried in the mix on this one. Just not a great album in my opinion. Just a little on the disappointing side. On Atlantic. So Roger Daltrey. Let's go to another Roger. How about Roger Taylor from Queen? Of course, the classic Queen drummer. Roger Taylor has got a great voice, and it's interesting when you got to somebody like Freddie Mercury leading your band. It's difficult for Roger to come out to the forefront. This is the album called Fun in Space, and I used to own a copy of this that I picked up at a thrift store a while back, but the album was absolutely trashed. This one, the cover's actually not that much better than the one I previously picked up, but the album's in great shape, and it does come with the inner sleeve. I can't help but think that Roger Taylor, if he would have had maybe better material, that his solo career might have gone a little bit better. And it's a shame because Roger Taylor's got a great rock voice. And of course he contributes to the overall sound of Queen, but on his own, his voice is just really terrific. I do like the fun that they have with some of the imaging on this album. But yeah, Fun in Space. And the title track has that kind of Bowie quality to it, in fact. But there you go. And this one came out, gosh, what was it, 1981 on Elektra. Okay, switching gears with Roy Orbison, more of Roy Orbison's greatest hits, and of course this includes his classic stuff from the Monument label. This particular album is in just wonderful shape. The jacket is just perfect, and it even includes the original Monument inner sleeve that shows you some of the other great stuff you can pick up. And the album is in great shape as well on Monument. And it's interesting, it's a volume 2, but boy, It's Over, Blue Bayou, all included on this one. The Christmas song, Pretty Paper, In Dreams. It's amazing what wasn't included on volume 1. But I always enjoy listening to Roy Orbison. So wonderful. Okay, so Roy Orbison there. Here's an artist I'm not too familiar with. I was able to find this at a really decent price. This is Paul Kelly, who I believe is an Australian artist. Paul Kelly and the Messengers, Under the Sun. This one came out in the late 80s. I think it was like 88 on A&M. Pretty much, kind of straightforward, kind of rock, popular sort of at the time with bands like, Midnight Oil or even, the Water Boys, that sort of era. I remember a few friends of mine really getting into Paul Kelly, but not bad. An artist I think is worth exploring for sure. This is just, as I say, I'm not too familiar with, and this is on the 80s A&M label. So yeah, I have to check out maybe a little bit more Paul Kelly. Nice kind of straightforward rock style. Okay, Elton John's box set, Jewel Box. There's a number of songs with Leon Russell, of course. Elton John made one album with Leon Russell called The Union. And coming across any Leon Russell, I tend to snap it up. And generally, I find Leon Russell for a pretty decent price. This is Will o' the Wisp, Leon Russell. Another wonderful album. I just love his soul, his the southern kind of sound. And this is on the Shelter Records label, and a very straightforward inner sleeve. And this is the inner sleeve that is originally with the album, but you think when you go to that, you'd put something on the inner sleeve, but another solid Leon Russell album. And he has a few albums for sure. Okay, let's check out this Canadian band. I think I've talked about this band before, the band Tease, kind of a good old hard rock and hard working Canadian band. This is their album from 1980 called Body Shots, and of course doing the sort of centerfold idea with this. It's interesting, that's a fairly tame cover though for something like this. There's the band there. Boys Night Out was the big one from this album. Again, they have sort of that April Wine hard rock and kind of quality to it. Great album for Tease to check out is their Live in Japan album. And there you have that. And then they continue with the idea of the pages, the contents for Body Shots. Like that. And yeah. And on Aquarius, which was also the label for April Wine as well. So yeah, just good Canadian hard rock and stuff. Boys Night Out, again. Featured on this one. Okay. From 1977, as I mentioned, I saw this band on tour for this album. This is Kiss and Love Gun. I did used to have a copy of this way back in the day, but of course I either sold it or got lost in the shuffle, shall we say. So I did pick up this reissue because I find this one in particular is a hard one to find an OG copy that has the paper gun or love gun included. So this is a reissue. I found this at a decent price. So this is a 180 gram audiophile vinyl. First U.S. vinyl pressing since 1985 editions. And this was the first album to feature Ace Frehley on lead vocals. Ace Frehley had written a number of songs for previous Kiss albums before this, but this was the first one he sang lead vocals on. So this, of course, includes the original sleeve, which I thought was pretty cool at the time, and the stylized label. And it's a really nice thick sleeve, and definitely 180 gram for sure. Do like that stylized sleeve. And yes, this does include the paper love gun, and of course I have not assembled it. I don't think I will, but I'll just show you what it looked like, and it's exactly what it looked like back in the day for sure. So it came like with this thing that would pop out, and then you'd fold it together and then sort of glue this thing onto it, and so you could then go and then bang would come out like a oh, the marketing. There you go. So Kiss and Love Gun, and as I mentioned, I saw the tour for Love Gun, gosh, way back in the day, and it was an amazing, absolutely amazing concert. With Ace Frehley doing Shock Me. Christine 16 is also sort of the big one from this album, and Hooligan, Peter Criss song on this is good. And I think this is one of the last albums, if I'm not mistaken, that Peter Criss plays all of the tracks on this, because I think then with subsequent albums, other than Kiss Alive 2, that Peter Criss's role on the drums would be drastically reduced with the band. So I think this is the last album he plays drums on all of the tracks on there. Okay, a great artist that I don't see very much in the vinyl community, Les Dudek, if I'm pronouncing his last name properly, a southern guitarist. This is the album Ghost Town Parade. I do love the cover for this. And Les Dudek, a great session player as well, who's turned up on some great albums. It's Les Dudek and Dickie Betts that are featured on the track Ramblin' Man from the Allman Brothers Band, which is pretty amazing. And he also worked with the Steve Miller Band and Boss Skaggs as well. And this is a solid rockin' album. He is a terrific guitarist for sure. But yeah, you don't see a lot of people talk about this artist. And he's still going strong. I believe he's in his late 60s now. And the inner sleeve. It's interesting when you have stuff like on the one side, but then nothing on the other. I never quite understand that. You think they'd just have that as an insert instead of the sleeve. But an artist worth checking out. And I've picked up a few of Les Dudek's albums, and have all been pretty solid. Great sort of southern rock, southern guitar kind of thing going on there. Okay, how about the best of Iron Butterfly? Evolution. This is a terrific album. This features the single version of Inagata Davida, which is kind of nice. I mean, the long version, of course, is terrific, but it's nice to enjoy also the single version, especially if you're listening to it in a compilation. This is at least an original press, and this, again, the cover is in terrific shape, and the album sounds terrific. And this is on Atco. Nice compilation, hard rocking from start to finish. Iron Butterfly. Okay, this Eric Clapton album, every time I look at it, I think this is a live album. Obviously, because it's called Another Ticket, and it's got a ticket on the cover, so you're thinking that it's a live album, but it is not. It is a studio album. This one came out in 1981. I believe this was his last album on the RSO label, the Robert Stigwood label. I Can't Stand It was one of the featured tracks on here. And this is Eric Clapton, still sort of in his kind of country leanings stage, so the soloing's not really to the forefront. That would sort of change as he would get into the 80s, but still really nice sound. I do like kind of the stylized label there on the RSO label. Yes, I'm pretty sure he changed labels after this particular album, but always happy to pick up any Eric Clapton on vinyl, for sure. Okay, picked up this one, Quicksilver Messenger Service. I was told that this album wasn't in very good condition, but album is in fine condition. Just for Love, this came out, I believe, in 1970. Love Quicksilver Messenger Service. Always love the artwork on their albums, too. So if I can like that. And like that, and don't know if this had an original inner sleeve, but this one didn't have one. But on the great Capital Green label, so yeah, from 1970 or 71. Okay, still more to show you. A couple of Steve Hackett albums. How about Steve Hackett Defector? Another solid Steve Hackett album. This one on Charisma from 1980. I'm really enjoying Steve Hackett. Love his guitar playing. I do love his sound overall. I really don't think Steve Hackett sometimes gets the proper respect that he deserves. And on that variation of the Charisma album, I would say the only thing sometimes with Steve Hackett albums, the covers are usually a little less than desirable. Sometimes covers of, like his early stuff was really good, but then some of these covers are just pretty plain or straightforward, although this one is certainly eye-catching. This is Steve Hackett, and the album is called Bay of Kings, and the artwork was by his then-wife, Kim Poor. This from 1983, but this is all an all-acoustic, a very somber album, and I think the record company at the time was a little concerned that this wasn't going to do all that well. I think it did okay. Steve Hackett to Bay of Kings, but that is quite the cover. Needless to say, and he also does the track Horizons on this one as well. But it's just a beautiful music for the background or for early morning, that sort of thing. Cover's not in the best of shape, and I don't know if this did have an original sleeve or not, but on the Chrysalis label. But it's a lovely album to listen to for sure. He's such a great guitarist. Okay, how about the Beach Boys? And this is Keeping the Summer Alive. Quite the cover on this one. Not a lot of big Beach Boy hits on this one. And I understand at the time that Brian Wilson had wanted more of a sort of a rock and roll kind of album. And I guess the concession to that is School Day, Ring Ring Goes the Bell, the Chuck Berry song. But this is actually a British press of this. And I would assume it would have had some sort of sleeve because there's no other credits or anything like that. But this does include a British inner sleeve, but on the Caribou label. I do like that label. It's beautiful. Yeah, not a bad Beach Boys album. Maybe not one of their best. Okay, Canadian band, Sheriff. You've likely seen this band before. They had the massive hit, When I'm With You, which was a big Canadian hit and then subsequently became a massive U.S. hit. This album is surprisingly good. When I'm With You is, of course, it's kind of the rockin' ballad, but it's not indicative of the album. In fact, when you get into side 2, this album gets pretty almost kind of prog rocky. Like it gets pretty going, pretty good. Like Give Me Rock and Roll is the last track on side 2. It starts off feeling kind of 80s, I don't want to say 80s pop, but 80s kind of rock. Then it gets into the ballad When I'm With You. But once you get into side 2, it gets surprisingly rocking and almost kind of like really extended and almost kind of prog rock. And on the Capitol label. Now, the one band member, the lead singer, went on to the band Alias, and then Arnold, is it Laney? Laney, Arnold David Laney, went on to the band Frozen Ghost. And Frozen Ghost definitely had a few Canadian hits for sure. Okay, here's the artist R. Dean Taylor. And R. Dean Taylor, originally from Canada, but he was on the Motown label, which is pretty amazing, and had a number of big hits, including Indiana Wants Me. And all the big hits are featured on this one. Indiana Wants Me, Ain't It a Sad Thing was also a Canadian hit. Gotta See Jane, which is quite a wild song, is featured on here as well. He also does a cover of Fire and Rain on here. But this is a terrific album, and I was able to pick this up still in the shrink, which I couldn't believe. And in great shape. So yeah, and he was one of the few artists of a different style of music on the Rare Earth / Motown label, which is kind of cool. So R. Dean Taylor and Indiana Wants Me, worth checking out, and certainly for the track Gotta See Jane is quite a song, quite a track. Okay, here's a Ike and Tina Turner album. This is called Get Back, and this is taking advantage of Tina Turner's resurgence in the 80s. So this is a compilation on the Liberty label. Really a great listen to, but this is definitely taking advantage of, Tina Turner's quite prominently featured. Ike kind of almost in the background there, because Tina Turner with Private Dancer was a massive hit when this reissue came out. But boy, Proud Mary, Want to Take You Higher, Nutbush City Limits, their cover of Let's Spend the Night Together, their cover of River Deep Mountain High. Now, of course, that was a big Tina Turner, Ike and Tina Turner with Phil Spector, but it's interesting, their own rendition of River Deep Mountain High is terrific. Honky Tonk Woman's on here, and they also covered the Beatles' Get Back. But boy, you put this on at a party and everybody's going to have a good time, I'm telling you. Really great. Oh, okay. And yeah, this one, is there a year on here or not? But this is definitely from the 80s in terms of this, when this compilation came out. Okay. Here's a band I don't know a lot about. I took a chance on this one. This is a band called Tranquility, and the album is called Silver. And the sound of this band is very reminiscent. This came out in 1972. So the sound of the band is kind of like Lighthouse or Chicago, kind of without the horns. That's the feel I get from this. Really nice. Nice album. And the jacket's in pretty decent shape other than the previous owner's autograph up there. And this came with the lyric insert, which is quite nice, but worth checking out. I really enjoyed this album. The band Tranquility and Silver. Yeah, don't know a lot about the band. I don't think they released too many albums, but on the Yellow Epic label. Okay, always like picking up Kinks' album, and picked up the Kinks present a soap opera featuring Norman and the Star Maker. Another fun Kinks album. I think they had grand designs with this. I don't know if this was going to be made into a film or a play, something like that. But always, with Ray Davis and the Kinks, there's always, there's always interesting lyrics. There's always interesting melodies, and another great one, at least in terms of a nice kind of concept album. This on RCA. And I don't know if they had too many concept albums after this one, in terms of my Kinks chronology. But when did this one come out? This one was on RCA, and it came out, I don't seem to have a year on this one, or early 70s or mid 70s. I think something like maybe the mid 70s on this one. Now it's on the tiniest of print here. I want to say maybe 75, 76, something like that. Okay. Kinks. Can't go wrong with the Kinks. Okay, another Canadian artist. This is an artist you're likely not familiar with. Ken Tobias had a number of radio hits, and so this is his collection, So Good So Far. And I even think that this might have been at least one time owned or housed at a radio station, because it has that sort of, Tobias 89. So this is on the Attic label. This album came out in 1978. This was kind of radio-friendly stuff, pretty middle of the road. I Just Want to Make Music, Fly Me High, Every Bit of Love, Dream Number 2, New York City. A lot of radio play on Canadian radio, but not a very well-known artist. Ken Tobias. Nice voice, nice radio-friendly stuff. Pretty middle of the road, but on the great Attic record label. Okay, another great Rick Derringer album. Can't get enough of Rick Derringer, and as I say, usually I find them pretty inexpensively, guitars and women. That's the title of an album. Another great one from Rick Derringer. And this one did not have any inner sleeve, but this was on the Epic record label. And nice kind of a little bit of a stylized album, 1979, this one. Okay, Rick Derringer. Picked this up at thrift store. You always tend to find, for whatever reason, the Kingston Trio at thrift stores and value shops. This was the Kingston Trio at large. And sometimes, they're in nice condition, and sometimes they're absolutely trash. This one is in really nice condition, nice sleeve on Capitol. I got a soft spot for the Kingston Trio, and this one did include a Capitol sleeve, which was quite nice. And I've never quite seen this variation on the Capitol label. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, the Kingston Trio, it's hard to remember, and not hard to imagine, but hard to remember how hugely popular they were. And I believe this is a mono copy as well, but my gosh, the Kingston Trio were hugely popular in the early 60s. And speaking of which, from the band, later from the band, John Stewart picked this up. This is Bombs Away Dream Babies, an interesting title for an album. And this one features the big hit Gold, which features Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks on that track. And that was such a massive radio hit. So this is, of course, post Kingston Trio. This is from like the late 70s, I want to say, 1979 on RSO. Okay, but yeah, overall, pretty nice album, and not really nice to have the song Gold. Okay, pick this one up at a thrift store. Steve Allen, you might remember him as was he the original host for The Tonight Show? Yeah, pretty sure, the original host for The Tonight Show, the great comedian Steve Allen, but also, much like Jackie Gleason, released a number of sort of big band or orchestra albums. And this is sort of taking advantage of the whole Tonight Show as music for tonight. And this is on the Coral Records label. Overall, it's very strings. It's very sort of Jackie Gleason feeling, but kind of nice. I thought the cover was really cool. And generally, the cover's in okay shape. It's a bit of a split on the side there. But the album is in nice shape on the Coral record label. I think this is from I want to say 1955, I think for this, yeah, 1955, roughly. My goodness. Okay, and I picked this also up at a thrift store, music for the UNICEF concert. So this is, in fact, a live concert for UNICEF, and this was on the Polygram label from 1979. You got Earth, Wind, and Fire, Andy Gibb, Donna Summer, ABBA's featured on here, Rod Stewart as well. So there's the track listings there, and this is actually performed at the for the UNICEF concert, and this was performed with the royalties from this album going to benefit UNICEF and the children of the world, with introductions by David Frost, Gildner Radner, and Henry Winkler. Look how cool is that? Performed at the General Assembly Hall of the United Nations, January 9th, 1979. Yeah, I remember when this came out. I never had a copy of it, but quite nice to have it. And this does include the original sleeve as well, which is quite nice. And yeah, kind of cool to have a copy of that. Okay, just a few more. Pick this one up. This is a CBC Records. This is called the Electronic Messiah. So this is kind of the highlights from Messiah. Now, sometimes with these kind of records, they look interesting, electronic, but then the electronics or the electronic keyboards are way overdone. And on this, they're not. I think they're subtly done on this one as kind of the highlights from Messiah. It works on this one. As I say, more often than not, it doesn't seem to, or when they try to do these not collaborations, but kind of electronic music with classical music, it doesn't really work sometimes. Sometimes it does, and in this case, I really think it does. Just an interesting, the cover's kind of a lot of fun there, too. And on CBC Records. And last but not least, how about Grease 2? Like, you don't see this one too often with Michelle Pfeiffer. This album, not great. Four Tops do basically the title track, Back to School Again. Other than that, it's a forgettable album. Interesting that this is just a single album, but of course the initial Grease soundtrack was a double album. From the whole Why Did They Bother or What Were They Thinking from 1982. But this does include the original sleeve. I picked this up for like $2. So I thought, well, why not? And it's in nice shape. There you go. Okay, and Grease 2. So that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you so much for dropping by, and we will chat again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.